There are nights when the weight of life feels too much to carry into tomorrow. Nights when the world has grown too loud and the silence inside you feels heavier than sound. Perhaps you're here because something in your life has unraveled, slowly or all at once, and you're left holding the pieces, unsure of how to begin again. Or maybe it's not one big loss, but the steady ache of little things wearing away at your spirit, a growing tiredness, a quiet sorrow, a feeling that the life around you no longer matches the one within, like a pair of shoes that no longer fit the feet that have walked too far for too long. Whatever has brought you here tonight, whether pain, confusion, or simply the longing for peace, know that you are welcome. You do not need to be fixed. You do not need to be explained. This space asks for nothing but your presence. In this moment, you are allowed to set it all down, the questions, the regrets, the should-haves, the why-nows, and simply rest. Begin by noticing your breath, not forcing it, not changing it, just noticing, as if watching an old friend return after a long journey. Let the inhale rise like a wave, let the exhale fall like a leaf. No resistance, no control, just breath, just being. The mind may try to follow its usual trails, chasing worries, digging through memories, preparing for what hasn't yet come. That's okay. Let it wander and gently guide it back to the breath, back to the body, back to this soft, unfolding moment. In the teachings of the Buddha, peace is not something we chase or earn. It is something we remember. Like the sky behind every storm, your calm nature has never left you. It has only been covered by noise, by stories, by all the ways the world taught you to forget. But beneath it all, there is a deeper stillness, a silence that cannot be shaken, a space inside you that has never been broken. Not by loss, not by failure, not even by heartbreak. Tonight, we will journey there together. You will not be asked to force your way forward or to solve your pain like a puzzle. Instead, you will be guided inward toward the quiet truths that Buddhist wisdom has offered for centuries. Truths that don't demand belief, but invite reflection. Truths whispered by monks who have sat with war and exile and death and found, even in those moments, a peace that could not be taken. These are not ideas meant to be memorized. They are waters meant to be entered slowly, like a warm bath at the end of a long, cold day. Let yourself sink into them. You are not here to fix the storm. You are here to remember you are not the storm. You are not here to control what's broken. You are here to find the space within that was never touched by the breaking. You are not here to push your way to peace. You are here to allow it to return, like sunlight filtering through a dusty window. This script is not a sermon, nor a solution. It is a quiet companion, a lantern to carry with you through the darkened forest of your thoughts. It will not rush you. It will not judge you. It will not ask you to be anything but exactly who you are. Weary, wondering, wide awake, or half asleep. Tonight as you listen, you may drift between waking and dreaming. Let that be part of the journey. Let the words blur and blend with your breath. You don't have to hold on to every teaching. You don't even have to remember them. Some truths do their work, not by being held tightly, but by simply washing over you again and again, like waves softening the sharpness of stone. Wherever you are, a quiet bedroom, a lonely hospital room, a care facility, a sleepless apartment, know that you are not alone. You are part of a great circle now, a circle of souls listening in the dark, breathing together in a shared longing for peace. If it brings you comfort, leave a comment sharing where in the world you're listening from. Like fireflies scattered across a map, we may be far apart, but tonight we create a constellation of stillness together. So breathe. Let the day fall behind you like a coat you no longer need to wear. Let the night receive you as you are. And if your thoughts return, if the pain flickers back, that's okay. Simply begin again. The breath is always waiting. The present moment is always ready to hold you. This is your invitation, not to do more, but to be less burdened, not to escape, but to return, to a place of calm inside you that has never been destroyed, only forgotten. Tonight we remember, we soften, we surrender. The question is not, how do I fix my life? The question is, can I let go just enough to be at peace with it? Let that question stay with you as we begin. There is a moment just after something falls apart, when the mind begins its desperate work. It scans for answers, scrambles for timelines, tries to tape everything back together before anyone sees the cracks. In those first fragile breaths we think, if I just do this, maybe I can fix it. If I can hold tighter, run faster, explain better, maybe I can stop it all from slipping away. And in that instant, without realizing it, we enter into battle with what already is. A quiet war with reality. A fight we will always lose. Not because we are weak, but because the nature of life is not to be held. It is to be experienced, moment by moment, then released. Control is the illusion we cling to when we fear the unknown, like trying to command the ocean with our hands, or hold back the setting sun by closing our eyes. We tell ourselves we are in charge of the outcomes, the people, the unfolding of events, and for a while this belief soothes us. But when life doesn't go according to plan, that comfort dissolves, and underneath it we find not strength, but fear. Fear that without our grip, we will fall. Fear that if we don't manage everything perfectly, everything will fall apart. But the truth is, life was never fully in our hands to begin with. The Buddha once taught that clinging is the root of suffering, not because desire is wrong, but because permanence is an illusion. The more we try to force life into a shape that comforts us, the more we suffer when it inevitably changes. Relationships shift. Bodies age, plans unravel, loved ones leave, and no matter how tightly we hold, the river continues to flow in directions we never predicted. The question is not whether we can stop the river. The question is whether we can learn to float. In Buddhist practice, we are not taught to dominate the mind or subdue the world, but to soften the grasping that binds us to our pain. To see that the urge to control is born from fear, a fear of uncertainty, of helplessness, of being unmoored in a vast, changing world. But what if the opposite is true? What if peace doesn't come from controlling more, but from needing less? What if your strength is not in how much you can hold, but in how gently you can let go? Imagine a bird flying through a windstorm. It does not resist the gusts by stiffening its wings. It does not curse the sky or fight the force of the wind. It yields, adjusts, rides the current, and lets the air carry it until calm returns. It survives not by control, but by trust. And you too, in your own silent storm, can begin to ask a different question, not, how do I fix this? But what can I release? Ask yourself gently, what am I gripping right now that is asking to be let go? Maybe it's an idea of how things should have turned out. Maybe it's a version of yourself you can no longer become. Maybe it's the belief that unless everything is okay, you can't be okay. But what if peace isn't waiting on the other side of your fixing? What if it's waiting right here, underneath your resistance? There is a Zen story of a monk who carried a heavy load of wood up a steep mountain. With every step the burden grew. Another monk watched quietly, then said, "Why do you carry what you can put down?" The first monk paused, then slowly laid the wood on the earth and exhaled. "I had forgotten," he said. "I thought I needed it." We all carry things we think are necessary, burdens of responsibility, of perfection, of appearances. But often, we don't even realize we're carrying them until we're exhausted, until we find ourselves weeping without knowing why, or lying awake long after the world has gone to sleep. Control is a weight we lift without question, but peace comes when we remember we can set it down. So tonight, as you lie here listening, allow your body to soften just a little more. Feel the weight of the day slowly melt from your shoulders. Let the hands unclench, the jaw loosen, the chest rise and fall without tension. These are not small acts. They are sacred surrenders, the body's way of saying, "I no longer need to hold what life is already carrying." You are allowed to rest now. The universe does not need you to hold everything together. The storm you fear may not be something you have to fight. It may be something that's passing, something that does not require your resistance but your stillness. Try not to force the moment to become anything other than what it is. Let the sounds pass. Let the thoughts drift. Let the breath guide you back to the quiet center within. The illusion of control may tempt you again, to analyze, to prepare, to brace yourself for what may come tomorrow. That's okay. When it rises, just notice, and then return to the breath, to the softness, to the truth that peace lives not in holding everything still, but in being still within everything that moves. You are not failing because life shifted. You are not broken because things did not go your way. You are simply being shown a new way, one that doesn't demand control, but invites trust. Ask yourself now with tenderness, what might open within me if I stop trying to hold it all together? Let this be your quiet contemplation as we drift into the next part of our journey. There is a teaching in the old Zen texts, passed down not with thunderous proclamations, but with quiet nods and long silences beneath ancient trees. It says, "The fire does not burn what is empty." At first glance, it may sound poetic, mysterious, but the deeper you let it settle, the more it becomes clear. Only what clings can be harmed, only what is full of resistance, of stories of identity, can be shattered. Emptiness, in the Buddhist sense, is not a void to be feared, but a freedom to be lived. And the one who has emptied herself of attachment is the one the fire cannot touch. Think of the bamboo flute. Its beauty is not in what it holds, but in what it lacks. It is the hollow inside that allows breath to move through it, turning silence into music. Without emptiness, there is no sound. Without space, there is no peace. In the same way, your own being, when uncluttered by grasping, becomes a vessel for something softer, truer, more spacious than control or fear. But how often do we fill ourselves without noticing, with plans, with opinions, with fears of what might go wrong, and stories of what should have gone right? We wake in the night, not from the sound outside, but from the noise inside. Thoughts overlapping like tangled roots, fears whispering futures that haven't arrived. And then when the fire of life touches us, a loss, a change, a truth we didn't choose, we feel scorched. Not because the flame was too hot, but because there was no space left for it to pass through. Imagine now a moment of pain you've carried, not to relive it, but to observe it. Where did it burn? What did it consume? Often the suffering lives not in the event itself, but in the parts of us that couldn't let it go. The identity that felt insulted, the expectation that wasn't met, the fear that said, This should not be happening to me. The pain clung to what was full of pride, of control, of unfinished stories. But what if, even for a breath, you were like the bamboo? What if the pain could pass through without finding anything solid to burn? In Buddhist meditation, we are taught not to hold our emotions, but to allow them, to sit like the sky, watching the clouds pass. Grief, anger, longing, joy, none of them permanent, none of them ours to own. They arise, they move, they dissolve, but only when we don't try to capture them, only when we let the flame flicker without grabbing it. This is not detachment in the cold, distant sense. It is a warm, tender spaciousness, the kind that says, "You may pass through me, but you do not define me." Picture yourself now, not as the one carrying the pain, but as the space in which the pain moves. You are not the story, you are the witness. You are not the flame, you are the hollow flute, through which the fire hums and continues on. When you stop clinging to what must be, when you release the need for things to unfold according to your script, you begin to notice something else, a quiet song beneath the noise. Peace is not what comes after the storm, it is what hums beneath it. Not something to chase, but something to uncover, to remember. In the stillness of the present moment, you begin to sense what cannot be burned, that no matter how much life changes, there is a space within you, always untouched, always serene, that watches and waits. This is not escape, it is awakening. The storm outside no longer creates a storm within. Take a breath here, let the air enter gently, like a breeze through an open window. Feel it move through you, and as you exhale, release something, even just a sliver of something, that you no longer need to hold. A regret, a fear, a name you were trying to live up to. Let it fall. In the falling, you are not losing. You are making space. You are becoming empty, in the most sacred way, the way that cannot be burned. There is a story told of a monk who sat for hours in the ruins of a temple that had burned to the ground. Another monk approached and asked, "Why do you stay here? There is nothing left." The first monk smiled and replied, "Yes, but now I see what could never be destroyed. Beneath all our constructs, roles, relationships, possessions, there is something unnameable that remains, that watches, that loves without reason, that knows how to begin again." Tonight, as you rest, allow that knowing to rise, not as a loud revelation, but as a gentle warmth. You are not what has burned. You are not what was lost. You are the space that holds the loss without collapsing. The sky that remains when every cloud has passed. The flute that still sings, not in spite of its emptiness but because of it. And if your mind returns, as it likely will, to the old stories, to the sharp flames of thought, to the grasping and fixing and fearing, that's okay. Let it return, and then, as gently as a falling leaf, return your awareness to the breath, to the present, to the space within you that cannot be harmed. Ask yourself, without rushing, where can I create space tonight, so the fire no longer finds a place to burn? Let this question hold you as we move deeper into the night, and deeper into yourself. There is a peculiar ache that visits quietly, often in the stillness between midnight and dawn. It's not the sharp sting of something newly broken, but the dull, persistent pull of something already lost. A person, a dream, a version of life that no longer exists, yet still takes up space inside the heart. You may have felt it too. The hollow echo of what once was, the quiet desperation of a heart that hasn't caught up to what reality has already let go. And in that space between what was and what is, suffering grows, not because of the loss itself, but because of our inability to release it. Clinging is a natural response to pain. The mind, in its sincere attempt to protect us, wraps itself around what's familiar. It says, "Don't let go. This mattered. This defined you. This made you feel whole." And so, we hold tighter. We hold even as the thing we're holding has already slipped through. Like trying to grasp water with closed fists, we end up with nothing but tension. In Buddhist teaching, this grasping is the origin of dukkha, the unease, the discomfort, the suffering that quietly erodes our peace. To let go does not mean to forget. It does not mean to erase, or to pretend it never mattered. To let go, in the Buddhist sense, is to allow things to pass through us without resistance, to love deeply, to lose gently, and to trust that what has departed was never truly ours to keep. Everything, no matter how beautiful, belongs to the river of impermanence. And when we try to dam that river, when we try to hold the flow in place, we only flood ourselves with sorrow. You may still remember the sound of a voice that no longer speaks your name. You may still ache for the plans you made that will never come to life. There may be a room in your heart that still waits for someone who will not return. This is not weakness. This is the cost of being human. To love, to hope, and to grieve when life does not follow our longing. But grief becomes suffering when we hold it so tightly, it no longer moves. And so the path of peace is not paved with answers or explanations, but with surrender. Imagine for a moment that your heart is like a tree in autumn. The leaves are falling, not because the tree has failed, but because it is time. And though each leaf was once part of its life, the tree does not try to reattach them. It lets them go, one by one, into the wind, trusting that spring will come when it is meant to. In the same way, your heart can learn to release what is already gone, not as a dismissal, but as an honoring. Letting go is not the opposite of love. It is the continuation of love in a new form. There is a story told in Buddhist tradition of a woman named Kisa Gotami, whose child had died. In her grief, she went from house to house, begging for medicine to bring the child back to life. The Buddha told her he could help, but only if she brought him a mustard seed from a home that had never known loss. She returned hours later, empty-handed. Every home she visited had lost someone. Every heart had known sorrow. In that moment, she understood. Suffering is not personal, but universal. Her clinging began to soften, and from that softening, peace began to grow. Tonight, as you lie in the dark, perhaps there is something your heart is still holding. A goodbye never spoken, a chapter you weren't ready to close, a future that disappeared before it could begin. Let it be here, just for now. You don't need to push it away. You don't need to force it into the light. Simply breathe with it, feel it without fixing it. And when you're ready, not because the pain is gone, but because the resistance has softened, imagine opening your hand, not to drop it, not to cast it away, but to allow what wants to pass, to pass. There is no hurry. There is no shame in taking time. The heart releases in its own season, but you can begin, here, in this breath, by simply loosening the grip. Feel how your body responds. Maybe your shoulders relax. Maybe your breath deepens. Maybe nothing changes at all. And yet, something inside you shifts, like the very first leaf letting go of its branch in the early whisper of fall. This is what healing looks like sometimes. Not grand or immediate, but subtle and faithful. It's in the moment you stop rewriting the past in your mind. It's in the night you stop checking your phone for a message that won't come. It's in the breath you take when the memory arises, and instead of drowning, you float. So ask yourself now, without pressure or urgency, what am I still clinging to that is already gone? And can I begin, gently, slowly, without force, to let it go? As we continue our journey into the night, carry this question like a candle in your palm, not to burn, but to illuminate the path forward, one breath, one release, one quiet surrender at a time. There is a pain that doesn't come from what the world takes away, but from what it reveals, a kind of ache that rises not from the loss itself, but from the slow unraveling of who you believed yourself to be. Perhaps you felt it in the wake of a divorce, after retirement, through illness or disappointment, or in that quiet moment when something ends, and you're left asking, who am I now? It is one of life's most unsettling experiences, not the ending of a chapter, but the vanishing of the one who thought they were writing it. You might look in the mirror and see a familiar face, yet feel like a stranger has taken your place. You may feel like you're standing at the edges of your own life, watching the roles you once lived in dissolve, the caretaker, the achiever, the provider, the partner, the dreamer. You are still here, yet something in you has gone missing, not in a way that can be replaced, but in a way that changes everything. The ego, in Buddhist understanding, is not the enemy, but a kind of scaffolding we build to move through the world. It gives shape to our identity, but it is not who we truly are. We say things like, I am a teacher, I am a mother, I am successful, I am needed. And for a time these words comfort us, giving definition and belonging. But when life pulls those roles away, sometimes gently, sometimes all at once, we are forced to meet ourselves in a deeper way. And that meeting is not always easy. There is grief in losing the person you thought you were. The mind protests, says this shouldn't be happening, says you're nothing, without what you used to be. But what if that protest is only the surface layer? What if beneath the breaking is something softer, wiser, waiting to be known? Like a seed that must break open before anything beautiful can grow, the self you were clinging to may need to crack so that your truer nature can rise. Imagine an old robe, worn thin by time and story. You've worn it so long you forgot you could take it off. But now, as life changes, the robe no longer fits. It chafes at your skin, and though removing it leaves you exposed, vulnerable, uncertain, it also leaves you free. Free to feel what has always been beneath the fabric. Free to remember what cannot be lost. There's a Zen saying, when the self disappears, the world appears. What it means is this: when we stop seeing through the lens of me and mine, we begin to experience the world not as something we must shape or control, but as something we belong to. Without the fixed identity, we become spacious, open to what is, able to meet each moment without the burden of who we're supposed to be. But this spaciousness often begins with pain. It begins with the uncomfortable truth that you no longer know who you are. And yet this not knowing is sacred. It is the beginning of real spiritual awakening, because what is left when all the titles fall away? What remains when the performance ends and the stage goes dark? The answer, though quiet, is steady. What remains is presence, awareness, the open field of being that does not need a name to exist. The one who watches all things rise and pass without clinging. The one who remains when all identities fade, not because they were false, but because they were temporary. Tonight, if you find yourself caught in the ache of identity breaking, if you no longer feel like the person you once were, know that this is not a failure, it is a passage. You are being invited to step beyond the image, beyond the narrative, into the truth of your own unshakable awareness. You are not the job you lost. You are not the relationship that ended. You are not the age on your skin or the number in your bank account. These are real, yes. They shape the journey, but they do not define the traveler. You are the space that holds every version you've ever been, the witness to every joy and heartbreak. And though the world may not see this shift, though no one may notice what you're letting go of inside, your soul knows. It knows that something deeper is being born, not a new identity to cling to, but a quiet freedom, a soft strength, a return to what you've always been beneath the names and roles. So let yourself grieve the self you're losing. Mourn the version of you that worked so hard to be everything they were supposed to be. Thank them, bless them, and then gently invite them to rest. Take a breath now. Let it move through you like a wind across an empty field. Feel how the breath does not ask you to be anyone. It just flows. Inhale, exhale. That is enough. You are enough. Ask yourself now, not with urgency, but with kindness. Who am I when I am no longer who I thought I was? Let the question rest in your chest like a stone in still water. Don't rush the answer. Let it rise on its own, in its own time. For now, simply be. Simply breathe. Simply listen to what remains when all else is gone. There is a quiet violence in transformation, one that most of us are never taught to expect. We speak of growth as something beautiful, graceful, illuminating, and it is. But before the blooming, before the light, before the open petals and sweet fragrance, there is the crack, the breaking. The moment something hidden and essential gives way, and it is in that moment, often unseen and uncelebrated, that true change begins. Think of the seed buried in the dark soil. From the outside it appears lifeless, still, but inside something is stirring. Pressure builds. The outer shell begins to strain. And then, a fracture. The seed breaks open, not because something has gone wrong, but because something is finally ready to emerge. That crack is not failure. It is birth. Without it, nothing new could ever grow. So too with us. When life breaks you open through grief, illness, betrayal, or loss, it may not feel like a beginning. It may feel like ruin. Your routines dissolve. Your sense of self splinters. You can no longer hold on to the plans you once trusted. In the emptiness that follows, fear rushes in. The mind cries out, "Why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this?" But what if nothing is wrong? What if this isn't the end, but the first breath of something long buried within you? In the Buddhist view, all suffering is both an ending and an invitation. Pain does not come to punish you. It comes to awaken you, to shake loose the false layers that have kept your spirit small and contained. Just like the seed cannot remain whole and become a tree, you cannot remain unchanged and fully awaken. The ego resists this. It clings to what is known, even if it no longer serves. It says, "Let's go back." But the soul knows that what has cracked can never return to what it was. It knows the crack is holy. There is an old story of a Zen master who once broke his own favorite cup, a treasured possession he had used for decades. When asked why, he smiled and said, "It was already broken the day I received it. I was only waiting to see when the crack would show." This was not despair but clarity, a deep bow to impermanence, a recognition that everything we hold, even the things we love most, exists in a state of eventual transformation. And so, the question is never, "How do I avoid breaking?" It is, "How will I meet myself in the breaking?" Will you run from the fracture, trying to glue the pieces back together just as they were? Or will you let the breaking open something deeper, a strength not built on control, a peace not tied to perfection? You do not need to romanticize your pain. You don't have to find silver linings in every loss, but you can sit beside your sorrow without turning away. You can listen to what it's asking of you. Often, it is asking for presence, for you to finally stop running, stop fixing, stop pretending, and to simply be with what is. In that stillness, you may begin to feel something shift. Not a solution, but a softening. Not an answer, but a readiness. Maybe the version of you that broke was never meant to last forever. Maybe it did its job, carried you as far as it could. And now the shell must give way to something else. Something more honest, more free, more aligned with who you are now. This is not regression. It is evolution. It is the soul unfurling after a long sleep, stretching into spaces you didn't know existed within you. Try this now. Place one hand gently over your heart. Breathe into that space. Feel the warmth of your own touch, the pulse beneath your skin. In this simple act, you are saying, I am still here. Even after everything, I am still here. And that is no small thing. That is the quiet miracle of resilience. Not the kind that pushes through, but the kind that roots down, silently, steadily, beneath the surface. The next time you feel broken, remember the seed. It does not bloom by staying intact. It does not reach for the sun while clinging to the safety of its shell. It surrenders. It splits. It trusts the darkness to prepare it for the light. And though the world above may not yet see the change, it is already becoming. You too are becoming. Even now in this quiet hour, even if you cannot yet name what is being born, even if all you feel is the ache of what has ended, trust that something is beginning, not outside of you, but within. So ask yourself now, without needing a clear answer, what in me is trying to grow, and what must I allow to break for that to happen? Let this question breathe with you through the night. Let it rest at your side, like a lantern in the dark. You do not need to rush toward the light. You only need to stop fearing the crack, because what feels like breaking may be nothing more than the soul stepping forward at last, ready to grow beyond the life it has outgrown. There is a moment, often subtle and unnoticed, when emotions rise like clouds on the horizon, sudden, dark, and charged with meaning. Perhaps it begins with a single thought, a memory, or a word spoken the wrong way. Before long, the sky of your mind becomes overcast with fear, frustration, grief, or longing. And in that swirl, it is easy to forget what lies beyond the weather. You begin to believe you are the sadness, you are the fear, you are the storm. But this is where Buddhist wisdom quietly invites us to pause and remember a deeper truth. You are not the storm, you are the sky. It may sound poetic, even abstract, but this is not a metaphor meant to soothe in passing. It is a path back to peace, simple, profound, and accessible in every breath. The sky does not resist the storm. It does not argue with the clouds or try to chase the lightning away. It allows, it holds, and always beyond the turbulence, it remains untouched, vast, open, still. When you begin to see your inner world through this lens, everything softens. Thoughts no longer need to be controlled. Emotions no longer need to be feared. You begin to understand that what moves through you is not who you are. Anger may visit, but you are not anger. Sadness may linger, but you are not sadness. Even despair, heavy and real, is only a cloud passing through the spaciousness of your being. But of course the mind is conditioned to react, to identify, to say, this is me when joy arrives and this is wrong when pain returns. It wants labels, structure, a fixed identity to cling to. And in moments of turmoil, the mind becomes the thunder, the lightning, the howling wind. It spins stories about what's wrong and how long it will last. It believes every storm is the end of something essential. Yet the sky is never afraid. The sky does not panic. It does not break when the storm roars. It does not need to explain or justify what moves through it. It simply remains, open, steady, unwavering. This is the essence of your awareness, your true nature. Beneath every emotion, every thought, every experience, there is a presence in you that is unshaken, a part of you that watches, receives, and endures. It is not cold or distant. It is deeply compassionate. But it does not grasp. It does not cling. Meditation in its gentlest form is the practice of returning to that sky-like awareness. You don't need to push the clouds away or make the sun shine again. You simply sit, breathe, and watch. You allow everything to be as it is. And in that allowance, something powerful happens. The storm loses its grip, not because it disappears, but because you no longer identify with it. Try this now. Let your breath be your anchor, slow, steady, effortless. With each inhale, feel yourself expand. With each exhale, let go just a little more. You are not trying to empty the sky. You are simply noticing that you are more than the clouds. The thoughts may come, let them. The emotions may stir, let them. Like wind through branches, let experience pass through without resistance. And when the mind says, "I can't take this," gently whisper back, "This too shall pass." When the heart says, "I'll never be okay," place your hand over your chest and remind it, "I am not the storm." Over time, you may find that your storms still come, but they no longer shake you in the same way. You begin to sense the stillness beneath them. You begin to feel what the Buddha meant when he said, "Be like the earth, steady, unmoved, present." This doesn't mean you become indifferent, quite the opposite. When you no longer identify with every emotion, you become more compassionate, not less. You can hold your grief without drowning in it. You can feel your anger without letting it define your choices. You can sit with sorrow, and instead of collapsing, you can open. Remember this too. The sky is not just the space for storms, it is also the home of light. There is room in you for peace, for joy, for awe. You do not need to fix yourself to access these things. You only need to stop mistaking the passing weather for the sky itself. So as you rest tonight, you are invited into that vastness, not to escape the storm, but to rest deeper than its noise. Not to deny what hurts, but to know that what hurts is not the whole of you. You are not broken by emotion. You are the space it touches, then leaves. Even if it stays for a while, it cannot become you, unless you hold on to it. Let this be your practice as sleep nears. Whenever a thought tugs at your heart, whenever a feeling pulls at your peace, take a breath and ask gently, "Am I the storm, or am I the sky?" Ask it without judgment. Ask it like a bell ringing in the mist. Let the question settle in your breath, in your chest, in your bones. And when the answer comes, not in words but in feeling, you will know. You are the sky. You have always been the sky. There is a candle flickering in the center of the mind. It glows with thought, sometimes soft, sometimes bright, sometimes burning so hot it feels like it could consume you. These thoughts, memories, regrets, fears, longings, come and go with their own rhythm. Some are fleeting, harmless. Others linger, digging their roots in deeper each time you return to them. But no matter how strong or persistent, they are all the same in one essential way: they cannot hurt you unless you touch them. This is the truth. Most of us are never taught. We believe we must engage with every thought that arises, that every mental fire must be extinguished or solved. We are taught to respond, to analyze, to control, but in doing so, we forget a quieter wisdom, that not all fires are meant to be held, that some are only meant to be watched, and the suffering does not come from the flame itself, but from the hand that keeps reaching toward it. In Buddhist teaching, The mind is likened to a monkey, restless, jumping, always grasping. Thoughts arise as part of its nature. It is not broken for producing them, just as the candle is not wrong for burning. But peace comes when we learn to sit beside the fire without reaching into it. When we see the thought, recognize it, and let it pass. Not because we have figured it out, but because we no longer need to. Think of a thought you often revisit. Perhaps it's a regret from the past, a conversation that didn't go the way you wished, a future that never came to life. Notice how it comes back, again and again, as if it were knocking at your door, demanding to be let in. And each time you open that door, each time you grip it with your awareness, it burns, not more or less than before, but exactly as it always has. And still, we return. Still we touch. But tonight, in this moment, you are offered another way. You are invited to stop touching the flame, to let the thought arise without chasing it, to see it not as a problem, but as a passing ripple in the sky of your awareness. It may still burn. It may still tempt you with its heat, but you can choose to let it flicker in the distance, warm, perhaps illuminating, but no longer consuming. This does not mean denial. You are not pretending the thought isn't there. You are not suppressing or shaming it. You are simply refusing to fuel it with your attention. Like watching a fire through a window, you acknowledge it without stepping into the blaze. You say, softly, I see you, and I choose peace. In meditation, this is the art of non-reactivity. You sit, you watch, a thought appears, you greet it, and then you release. No commentary, no judgment, no grasping, just the practice of letting be. Over time, this practice creates space, space between thought and action, between trigger and reaction, between fear and self. And in that space, peace lives. Try this now. As you lie here, become aware of the mind's movement. Perhaps a memory arises, a small tension, a storyline beginning to unfold. Watch it, gently, without engagement. Let it rise like incense smoke, curling, drifting, and then dissolving. You don't have to pull it in. You don't have to push it away. Just witness. Just be. You may notice that certain thoughts return more often, like old friends or old ghosts. These are the thoughts most familiar, the ones that carry emotional charge. And while the instinct may be to understand or solve them, what if understanding is not required for release? What if clarity is not the doorway to peace, but its byproduct? A candle, left untouched, burns itself out. So too will a thought, if left ungrasped. Ask yourself gently now, what thought have I been holding so tightly that it has begun to hold me? It might be a belief about your worth. It might be an image of how your life was supposed to unfold. It might be a silent punishment you've carried for years. Whatever it is, know that you do not have to wrestle it to the ground. You do not have to prove it wrong or make it right. You only need to stop feeding it with your attention. Peace does not come from thinking the right thoughts. It comes from stepping outside the need to think your way into worthiness. It comes from being present with what is, breath, body, awareness, and knowing that none of it needs fixing. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them, the space they appear in, the witness behind the fire. Let that truth hold you tonight. Let the candle flicker, let the flame burn, and let your hand rest in stillness. There is a place in every storm where silence lives, a strange and sacred center known as the eye. To reach it, a hurricane must tear through the world around it, shaking foundations, bending trees, tossing the familiar into the unknown. But if you were to fly directly into that storm, through the roaring winds and piercing chaos, you would eventually arrive at a calm unlike anything else. The winds vanish, the sky opens, and for a few suspended moments, the world grows still again. This quiet, this pause at the center of all that violence, is not an illusion. It is a truth hidden inside the chaos. Your life too has known its storms, sudden changes, shattering news, nights when the world you built came undone in your hands, days when the grief was so loud you couldn't hear your own breath, times when the ground beneath you shifted and you had nothing to hold. And in those moments, it's natural to look outward, to scramble for safety, to try and fix the damage before you've even understood it. But what if, instead of rising to meet the winds, you chose to drop into the center of it all? What if your peace has been waiting, not on the edges of the storm, but in its heart? The practice of sitting in the eye of the hurricane is not about removing yourself from life. It is about rooting yourself so deeply within that nothing on the surface can unseat you. It is the stillness of the mountain beneath the clouds, the ocean beneath the waves, the calm awareness beneath the ever-changing conditions of thought and emotion. The world may shake, but that does not mean you must shake with it. Buddhist wisdom does not promise a life without storms. In fact, it prepares us for them. It teaches that suffering is not failure, it is part of the path. But within suffering, within the chaos of change, there is always an invitation to go deeper. To anchor not in what moves, but in what does not. And what is it that doesn't move? It is the awareness behind the experience. The part of you that observes, feels, responds, but does not collapse. Imagine yourself now as a tree with deep roots. The wind may howl, the leaves may fall, branches may bend, but the roots remain. They are hidden beneath the surface, silent, unseen, but strong. In the same way, you can root your awareness deep into your own inner earth. Not as a way to avoid what's happening, but as a way to remain steady through it. The practice is not to stop the storm. The practice is to stop being carried by it. Try this now. Bring your attention to your breath. Feel its gentle rise and fall, like waves on a calm sea, like wind passing through an open window. Let each inhale guide you inward, and each exhale ground you deeper. As thoughts arise, as they will, simply notice them. Don't follow them. Don't push them away. Just return, again and again, to the breath, to the body, to the stillness within. This is your eye of the storm. This is your center. In the deepest storms of life, when plans unravel, when loss cuts through the heart, when the future becomes uncertain, it is not your job to fix everything at once. It is not your task to hold it all together. It is enough to sit, to breathe, to stay rooted in presence while the winds swirl, because the storm may pass quickly, or it may linger. But your peace does not need to wait for the storm to end. Peace in this sense is not relief from the weather. It is trust in your anchor. You may recall moments from your life when everything around you seemed to fall apart, yet something within you stayed strangely calm. You may have even wondered at your own clarity, your unexpected strength, your ability to move slowly through the chaos. That was your center. That was the eye of your storm, and that stillness lives in you always. It doesn't vanish when you forget. It only waits, quiet, patient, for your return. There is a teaching from the Buddha that says, just as the great earth is not disturbed by what is cast upon it, sweet or foul, so too should the wise remain unmoved by praise or blame, gain or loss, joy or sorrow. This is not a call to numbness but to depth, to live not on the surface where everything changes, but from the ground of being, where nothing needs to be defended. You are not the chaos of your life. You are not the storm of your thoughts. You are the space they pass through. And in that space is great power. The power to pause before reacting, to soften before judging, to sit down in the middle of the mess and simply breathe. Ask yourself now, with tenderness without needing an answer, when the storm rises again, as all storms do, will I rise with it, or will I remember the I? Let that question rest in your breath, your chest, your bones. You do not need to know how to do it perfectly. You only need to know that the path exists, and that you are walking it now, breath by breath, storm by storm, remembering that there is a place inside you that no chaos can reach. There is a moment, subtle and almost imperceptible, when pain arises, a physical discomfort, an emotional wound, a sudden realization that something precious has slipped through your hands. And then, almost immediately, something else follows, a tightening, a pulling away, a deep resistance in the heart that whispers, "No, this should not be happening." We mistake the pain for the problem, but if you listen more closely, beyond the ache, beneath the tension, you may find that it is not the pain itself that hurts most. It is the refusal to allow it. The war we wage against what already is. The Buddha spoke of this in a teaching known as the 2 arrows. He said that when we are struck by the first arrow, the pain of life itself, we suffer. But then we often strike ourselves with a second arrow, our resistance, our judgments, our stories about what the pain means. The first arrow is unavoidable, but the second is optional. And it is this second arrow that deepens our wounds, that turns passing discomfort into long-term suffering. Think of a time when something painful happened, the loss of a loved one, a betrayal, an unexpected end. The event itself brought its own natural grief. But then, like layers forming over a wound, came the questions, the regrets, the anger. Why me? This isn't fair. It shouldn't be like this. And each of those thoughts, while understandable, was another arrow. Each one kept the pain alive, made it more personal, more permanent. But pain, when allowed to exist without resistance, is not always an enemy. It can be raw, yes, intense, yes, but it is also transient. It moves like weather across the sky. It teaches, like wind shaping stone. The heart can survive more than it believes, not by hardening, but by softening into what is real. And what is most real, in this moment, is simply what you feel. There is wisdom in turning toward our pain, instead of away from it. This does not mean indulging it or becoming defined by it. It means meeting it with presence, with breath, with a willingness to feel it, without the need to explain or control it. When we stop asking our pain to disappear, it often begins to soften. When we stop needing it to make sense, it begins to reveal something deeper, a clarity we could not access while we were still resisting. Imagine your pain now as a small child knocking at the door. It is not here to punish you. It is not here to test you. It simply wants to be acknowledged, to be held, to be heard. And if you open the door, even a crack, you may find that it quiets, that it no longer needs to shout. You do not have to fix it. You only have to stop pretending it's not there. Try this now. Bring your awareness to a place in your body where you feel tension or discomfort. Don't analyze it. Just notice. Breathe into it. Let the breath surround it gently, like warm water. No pushing, no solving, just presence. And if your mind wants to turn away, if it says, "This hurts too much," gently return. Remind yourself, what I resist persists. What I meet with awareness begins to shift. So often we believe healing will come when we understand, when we find the reason, when we make sense of the chaos. But understanding is not a requirement for peace. What matters more is your willingness to be with what is, without needing it to change before you feel whole again. This is the heart of Buddhist compassion, to be with suffering, yours or another's, without needing to push it away. There is a story of a woman who came to the Buddha, shattered by loss. She had carried her grief for years, hoping for relief, begging the world for answers. When she finished her story, the Buddha did not offer an explanation. He simply sat with her in silence, and in that silence, something inside her shifted. For the first time, her pain was not a burden to be fixed, but a truth to be held. That moment became the beginning of her healing, not because anything changed, but because she finally stopped resisting what had already happened. Pain is not a punishment. It is not proof that you are doing something wrong. It is simply part of the human experience. And like a wave, it rises, peaks and falls. The more we tense against it, the longer it stays. The more we let it move through us, the more quickly it dissolves. You do not have to invite pain, but when it arrives, you can choose to meet it with grace. As you rest here tonight, perhaps something in you still aches, a quiet sorrow, an old memory, a new fear. You do not need to chase it away. You do not need to run. Simply notice the places where resistance lives, the thoughts that say, "This shouldn't hurt," the body that clenches, the heart that longs to escape. And in that noticing, offer a breath, offer stillness, offer the space for everything to simply be. Ask yourself now, without force, what part of me is still refusing to feel what has already arrived? Let that question settle like dust in a beam of light. Let it be a doorway, not to answers, but to presence. Because what hurts the most is not the pain. It is the belief that the pain should not be there. And when that belief softens, when we stop saying no to life, peace enters quietly, not because we have fixed anything, but because we have finally stopped fighting. There is a subtle tension that lives beneath the surface of so many of our days, a quiet strain, invisible but constant, like a tight thread pulling us towards some imagined future. We wake up already reaching, already measuring, already hoping that life will unfold in the way we've pictured in our minds. Expectations, unspoken yet deeply held, begin to shape our sense of peace before the day has even begun. We expect certain outcomes. We expect people to behave a certain way. We expect life to flow along a path we can predict. And when it doesn't, when plans unravel, when others don't meet our needs, when we ourselves fall short, we suffer. But the pain isn't born from the reality itself. It comes from the space between what is and what we thought it would be. It comes from our refusal to allow the moment to be exactly as it is. In this way, expectation becomes a cage, one so familiar, we often don't see the bars. We believe that once life fits our image of how it should look, then peace will arrive. But Buddhist wisdom offers another way, a gentler, more spacious truth, that peace begins where expectation ends. This is not a call to apathy, nor to resignation. It is not about lowering your standards or giving up hope. It is about seeing clearly, seeing that the mind, in its effort to secure happiness, often builds conditions for it, and those conditions, once unmet, quickly become the root of dissatisfaction. But when we begin to let go of the need for life to match our mental script, something inside us begins to relax. There is more room to breathe, more space to be, more compassion for ourselves and for others. Think of a river flowing through a rocky landscape. The water does not expect the rocks to move. It does not argue with the shape of the land. It curves, it adapts, it flows. In its softness, there is strength. It makes its way not by force but by surrender, and still, it reaches the sea. What if we lived like that? Not passive, but fluid. What if, instead of resisting the shape of each moment, we flowed with it? You may notice how expectation often disguises itself as certainty. We become attached to stories. They should love me this way. My body should feel stronger. By now I should have more, be more, know more. These stories are rarely questioned. They become the background music of our lives. But what happens when we pause and really examine them? What happens when we ask, who told me it had to be this way? More often than not, we discover that the expectation was inherited from culture, from family, from fear, and like all inherited beliefs, it can be released. Try this now. Bring to mind a place in your life where you feel tension, a relationship, a dream, a lingering sense of restlessness. Ask yourself, gently, what am I expecting here? What have I decided must happen in order for me to feel at peace? Don't force an answer, just notice. And in that noticing, begin to loosen your grip. You may find that peace doesn't require a resolution. It only requires the softening of insistence. There's a saying in Zen, let go or be dragged. It is a reminder that clinging to how things should be will never change how they are. It will only increase your suffering. But in letting go, even a little, you create space. And in that space, something surprising often appears: acceptance, tenderness, even gratitude. Not because everything has gone your way, but because you are no longer fighting the way it's gone. Imagine sitting beneath a tree in early spring. The branches are bare. The blossoms have not yet appeared. You could demand that the tree bloom now, insist that it hurry. But the tree will not bloom because you expect it to. It will bloom when it is ready. And your peace, like the blossoms, arrives not from demand, but from alignment with the natural unfolding. Let this be your practice to release expectation without abandoning care, to allow each moment to be what it is, and to meet it with presence, not protest. It may feel strange at first, as though you are giving up control, but what you are actually doing is returning to reality. And in that return, peace becomes possible, not as a prize, but as a natural result of non-resistance. As you rest tonight, you may notice the mind reaching toward tomorrow, toward understanding, toward something unfinished. That's okay. Just notice the reaching, and then gently guide your awareness back to the breath, to the body, to the quiet truth of now. You don't need to hold the next moment. You only need to be in this one. Peace is not far away. It does not live at the end of achievement or certainty. It lives here, in the space between one breath and the next, in the silence that follows the release of one more expectation, in the softness that returns when we no longer demand that life be anything other than what it is. So ask yourself now, with compassion, where am I still insisting that life be different before I can rest? And if you can see that place clearly, even for a moment, you have already begun to release it. Let the breath carry you into that release. Let the night hold you as you are, and know that in this letting go, you are not losing control. You are remembering your freedom. We often imagine that peace will arrive with clarity, that once we understand why something happened, once we find the meaning, once the story makes sense, then we will finally be able to rest. And so we wait. We carry the weight of unanswered questions like stones in our chest, believing that one day the pieces will come together and the pain will resolve itself through logic or revelation. But sometimes the answers never come. The story stays unfinished, the ending remains unclear, and we are left in the space between aching, searching, circling the same thoughts over and over, hoping that understanding will deliver the healing we long for. But what if peace does not depend on explanation? What if it begins not in answers but in surrender? Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us that not all suffering can be solved. Some of it must simply be seen, held, and allowed to pass. The mind, trained to analyze and fix, resists this deeply. It says, you can't move on until you understand. You must find the reason. You must make it right. But the heart, when listened to quietly, speaks another truth, that freedom does not always come from solving the puzzle. Sometimes it comes from putting the pieces down, even if the image is incomplete. There are moments in life that simply do not resolve the way we hoped. A goodbye that came too soon. A betrayal that arrived without warning. A dream that unraveled without explanation. And in those moments, the ego cries out for closure, for justice, for meaning. But the soul, deeper and quieter, knows that peace is not something we find at the end of a story. It is something we discover when we stop demanding that the story explain itself. Try this now. Think of a moment in your life that never made sense. Something that still lingers in your thoughts. Some unresolved ending. Some silence that never spoke again. Notice what happens in your body when you recall it. Perhaps there's a tightening in your chest. A sigh that doesn't quite finish. A familiar ache rising again like a wave. This is the place where the mind keeps returning, hoping for something to change. But in this moment, what if you let the wave come, not to drown you, but to be witnessed, without the need to understand? Understanding can be a form of control. We believe that if we can label something, we can contain it. But the truth is, some experiences are too vast, too sacred, too mysterious for the mind to hold. And that's not failure. That's life. Life, in its essence, is not a neatly written book with every plotline resolved. It is a river that flows where it will, a wind that shifts without warning, a song with verses that fade into silence without a final chord. There is a story in Zen tradition about a man who loses everything in a fire. His home, his possessions, his plans, all gone in a single night. For months he walks the countryside in silence, his mind grasping for reasons. Why did this happen? What am I meant to learn? What comes next? One day, sitting beneath a tree with no answers left to chase, he stops asking. He places his hand on the earth, watches the breeze move through the grass, and simply says, "This, too." And in that surrender, something in him opens, not because he understood, but because he finally stopped needing to. Letting go without understanding is not about giving up. It is about giving in to the deeper rhythm of life that moves through all things, even pain. It is an act of profound courage to say, I may never know why this happened, and I can still choose peace. It is not passive. It is powerful. It is the quiet strength of the open palm, releasing the stone not because it's solved, but because it is too heavy to carry any longer. As you rest tonight, you may notice the mind reaching, trying to solve something from the past, to rewrite the moment, to make sense of what never quite did. That's okay. You are not wrong for wanting clarity. You are not broken for longing for resolution. But perhaps in this breath, you can give yourself permission to let go, not of the memory, but of the requirement that it must ever fully make sense. Breathe into that space now. Feel the air move through your body. Quiet, simple, faithful, each breath a reminder that life continues, even without explanation. Each exhale, a release of one more strand of resistance. You are not erasing the past. You are no longer asking it to answer questions it cannot. Ask yourself now, softly, without pressure, what am I still waiting to understand before I let go? And then ask, with even more gentleness, can I let go anyway? Let the question sit with you like two soft stones in your hand. You do not need to choose yet. You only need to notice the possibility, because sometimes healing doesn't come with insight. It comes with rest, with the willingness to stop circling the same thoughts and to instead walk forward barefoot and unsure but free. You are not unfinished because the story never resolved. You are whole because you chose to keep walking anyway. Life, like water, was never meant to be straight. It bends, it slows, it rushes and pools, and sometimes retreats into silence before moving again. It follows the landscape, yielding to every rise and fall, every stone and twist along the way. It does not demand the rocks to move. It does not argue with the shape of the land. It curves, it adapts. And in that gentle surrender, it always finds its way forward. We too are meant to move like this, not with rigidity, not with resistance, but with trust in our ability to adjust, to flow, to make our way through whatever appears in our path. But the human mind often believes that peace lies in control. It looks at the rock in the stream, the disappointment, the failure, the loss, and says, "This must not be here." We brace against it. We push. We plan. We replay. All the while the heart tightens and the body tires, because deep down we know the rock isn't moving. And so the suffering grows, not because the obstacle exists, but because we refuse to yield around it. Buddhist teachings do not promise a life without rocks. They offer, instead, a way to meet them with softness, not struggle. They say, be like the river, not because the river is weak, but because it is wise. It knows that what cannot be changed must be moved around. It knows that flow is stronger than force, that softness, applied with consistency, wears away even the hardest stone. Perhaps there is something in your life right now that feels immovable, a person who will not change, a situation that will not resolve, a truth you cannot deny, though part of you still resists it. And maybe the mind is saying, try harder, push more, fix it. But what if this time the invitation is different? What if the path is not through force, but through surrender? This kind of surrender is not defeat. It is not an admission that nothing can be done. It is the deeper wisdom that says, I no longer need to resist what already is. It is the gentle release of the need for life to obey your expectations. It is the soft exhale after years of holding your breath. And in that space, when the grasping stops, peace begins to rise, not as something added, but as something uncovered. There is a Zen story of a monk who was asked, what is the path to peace? He answered simply, drop the struggle. The questioner frowned, but what if the problem is real? What if it's too large to ignore? The monk smiled and said, then stop fighting it, curve around it. There was no elaboration, no 10-step method, just that, curve around it. Try this now. Bring to mind a place in your life where you are still pushing, still insisting that the rock should not be there. Notice the tension it creates, in the body, in the breath, in your sense of peace. And then imagine being water, not the kind of water that crashes in frustration, but the kind that flows, cool, clear, free. Imagine moving gently around the obstacle, not with urgency, but with quiet trust. You are not giving up. You are choosing another way. As you breathe, allow that image to guide you. Let the breath itself be the river. In, out, curving, moving, making space. Life may not be what you hoped right now. It may not be kind, or fair, or clean, but it is here, and you are here. And in this moment, You are allowed to stop trying to change the shape of the stone. You are allowed to let go of the argument. You are allowed to soften and flow around what does not move. So many of us spend our energy trying to change people, to rewrite outcomes, to force closure. We mistake resistance for strength, but the river teaches otherwise. It teaches that strength is in the refusal to be blocked, in the decision to keep moving, even when the way forward is not clear. The river does not rage when the rock appears. It shifts, and that shift is its wisdom. Let this be your practice when the mind begins to push, when you feel the urge to force what will not bend. Pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this a rock I need to move, or one I can simply curve around? Not everything must be conquered. Some things are simply meant to be allowed. You may not have the solution yet. The situation may still feel unresolved. But tonight you are not here to solve. You are here to rest. And rest begins when the struggle pauses. When the pressure to fix gives way to the permission to feel. You are not less wise for stepping back. You are not weak for surrendering your grip. You are simply becoming the river again, trusting that even now can be carried without resistance. Ask yourself now, not as a demand, but as a reflection, where am I still trying to force life to move, instead of allowing myself to flow? Let the answer rise slowly, or not at all. Let the question itself be a balm, a reminder that peace is not always on the other side of action. Sometimes it waits in the stillness that follows release, and just like that, with one breath, one softening, you return to your nature, flowing, not forcing, free, even in the presence of the stone. There is a quiet war that plays out inside many of us, subtle, internal, and often unnamed. One part of us reaches, holds, grasps tightly to what was, or what could be. It's the voice in the mind that says, "Don't let go yet. Maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll make sense. Maybe you'll get it back." It's the part of the mind that cannot bear uncertainty, that searches for safety and repetition, even when it hurts. And then there's the other part, deeper, slower, wiser. The part that doesn't always speak in words but in feeling. The part that gently whispers, "It's time." This is the heart, not the emotional heart that reacts in bursts, but the ancient heart, the quiet compass inside that has always known when a path is finished, when a season has ended, when a burden is no longer meant to be carried. The mind clings. The heart knows. And between these two, much of our suffering lives, clinging is not something to be ashamed of. It is simply the mind doing what it was built to do: protect, preserve, prevent discomfort. The mind believes that if it holds on tightly enough, it can keep us safe. It can stop the loss. It can delay the fall. But the cost of this clinging is subtle. We begin to live in fear, fear of change, fear of endings, fear of releasing the known for the unknown. And in that fear, we lose connection to the very peace we are longing to find. The heart, on the other hand, speaks in a different language. It does not argue or analyze. It feels, it senses. It moves with the rhythm of life, rather than against it. The heart knows when something is no longer meant for you. It knows when to stay and when to go. It knows how to love without possession and how to grieve without collapse. But its wisdom is often drowned out by the noise of thought. The what-ifs, the maybes, the inner negotiations that keep us spinning in place. So much of healing is simply learning how to trust the heart again. How to pause in the middle of the mind's urgency and say, "Wait, what do I actually feel beneath the fear? What truth is my heart already carrying, even if my mind hasn't caught up?" This is not an intellectual exercise. It's a return to a deeper presence, to a quieter knowing. You may find that your mind keeps returning to a person, a past, a story that feels unfinished. It circles and circles, hoping for resolution. But notice, each return doesn't bring peace. It brings more questions, more tightening, more delay. That is the mind clinging. But somewhere underneath, there may be a steady presence that already knows the truth, that the chapter is complete, that the door has closed, that your peace does not live in holding on, but in letting be. Try this now. Close your eyes, if they are not already closed. Bring to your awareness something you've been holding tightly, a situation, a memory, a wish for things to be different. Notice how the mind reacts. Does it argue, justify, panic? Then slowly, shift your attention to the space beneath the noise. Bring one hand to your heart. Breathe into that space. Ask gently, what do you know, my heart, that my mind is afraid to accept? You may not hear an answer in words. That's okay. The knowing may come as a feeling, a quiet grief, a softening, a small release. Let it be what it is. You don't have to act on this knowing right away. You don't have to rush the process. But the moment you begin to recognize the difference between the clinging of the mind and the clarity of the heart, something shifts. You begin to trust your own inner compass. You begin to see that holding on is not always strength. Sometimes it is fear, and that release, even when it feels like loss, is often the first step toward peace. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, but not because love is wrong or desire is evil. It's because when we attach to impermanence, to people, outcomes, identities, as if they are permanent, we create a tension that the heart cannot sustain. We want the world to stay still, but the nature of life is movement, and the more we resist that movement, the more we suffer. But when we align with it, when we allow things to come and go as they must, we begin to feel something else entirely. Not detachment, but freedom. Let this be your practice to notice when you are clinging, and to gently ask, is this coming from fear or from truth? You don't need to let go before you're ready, but you can stop pretending you're not already holding something that wants to be released. You can honor the mind's need for control, while also honoring the heart's need for peace. And in time, with patience and compassion, the two will begin to align. As you rest now, the mind may still be holding something tightly. That's okay. You don't need to force release. Just breathe. Let the breath move through the body, like a soft wind, loosening the grip, reminding you that you don't need to have all the answers. You only need to stay with what is real, and what is most real, in this moment, is that the heart already knows, and it will wait for you to listen. Ask yourself now, not to judge, but to soften. What am I still clinging to that my heart has already released? And ask again, like a prayer, can I begin, even now, to trust the knowing that lives deeper than thought? Let that question be your companion tonight. Let it settle into your breath, your bones, your dreams. The mind may take time to catch up, but the heart is already home. Close your eyes now, if they are not already closed, and picture a mountain, tall, still, rooted in the depths of the earth, its base wide and unwavering, its peaks reaching quietly toward the sky. Around it, the weather shifts, wind dances across its ridges, rain falls, fog clings to its slopes, snow buries its summit. Sometimes the sky above it is clear and bright, bathed in golden light. Other times, storms rage with thunder and ice. But through it all, the mountain remains. It does not resist the weather. It does not try to hold on to the sun or push away the rain. It simply stays, steady, present, unmoved. You too can be the mountain. So often, we forget this. We mistake ourselves for the weather. The fleeting moods, the passing thoughts, the emotional storms that come and go. We identify with the anxiety, the sadness, the joy, the fear. We say, I am angry, or I am broken, or I am not enough. But these are just clouds, some thick, some wispy, drifting across the landscape of your awareness. They are not the truth of who you are. You are not the storm. You are the space it moves through. You are the mountain beneath it all. This is the heart of many mindfulness teachings, the reminder that we are not what we feel. We are the one who notices the feeling. We are the one who remains while everything else changes. And in that noticing, in that still presence, there is great peace. Because if you are not the weather, then you don't need to fix it. You don't need to chase away the clouds. You only need to return to your center, again and again, and let the storm pass on its own time. Imagine now that your thoughts are like gusts of wind. They come with urgency, sometimes warm and soft, sometimes cold and sharp. Your emotions are like waves of rain, heavy at times, light at others. And your body, with its aches and tensions, its comfort and restlessness, is the terrain where all this weather plays out. But beneath it all is your awareness, vast, quiet, grounded. That awareness does not resist. It watches. It receives. It holds space for everything without needing anything to change. Being the mountain does not mean being numb. It does not mean closing your heart or pretending nothing affects you. It means that you feel everything, but you are not defined by it. You allow joy to arise without clinging. You allow sadness to visit without drowning. You allow fear to pass without running. And in doing so you become free, not because life no longer moves, but because you are no longer tossed by every shift in the wind. Try this now. Bring your attention to your breath, slow, grounded, steady. Let each inhale anchor you deeper into the center of your being. Let each exhale release the need to control anything outside of this moment. And as you breathe, feel your body like a mountain, heavy where it meets the bed, grounded through the hips, the legs, the spine. Let the arms fall loosely by your sides. Let the chest rise and fall like a quiet summit in a passing breeze. Now notice what arises, a thought, a feeling, a sensation. Let it come. Let it go. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to fight it. You are not the thought. You are the one who watches. You are not the weather. You are the mountain. There may be moments tonight when a memory rises, a sharp gust, a sudden cloud. There may be moments when the heart stirs, a drop of grief, a wave of longing. You are not wrong for feeling these things. You are human. But even in those moments, you are still the mountain. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are simply experiencing what passes. This perspective, this mountain awareness, is what allows us to meet life with equanimity. It does not mean we stop caring. It means we stop clinging. It means we remain centered in the middle of joy and sorrow, of gain and loss, of praise and blame, without being pulled out of ourselves. This is what the Buddha called upekkha, the profound balance of mind that comes from seeing clearly and resting deeply in the truth of impermanence. The weather will continue to change. That is its nature. Thoughts will come, emotions will rise, conditions will shift. But the more you return to the mountain of your being, the less afraid you become. You no longer need everything to go your way in order to feel peace. You simply rest in what is, knowing that all weather passes, and the mountain remains. Ask yourself now, softly, like a prayer whispered into the stillness, what if I didn't need to fix this moment? What if I could simply rest within it? Let the question settle in your breath, your body, your awareness. You don't need an answer. The asking is enough. The turning inward is the beginning of peace. And so, As the night deepens and your body softens, know this: you are not the passing mood. You are not the story the mind spins in the dark. You are not the ache or the hope or the memory. You are the mountain, steady, spacious, whole. Let everything else drift by like mist and rest. You are safe. You are here. You are home. There is a quiet unrest that lives beneath so much of our waking life, a subtle ache, a barely audible hum in the background of thought, whispering, "This moment is not enough." We don't often hear it outright, but it shapes how we move, how we think, how we feel. We wake with lists already forming in the mind. We measure the day against what hasn't been done, and we carry within us the belief that peace, fulfillment, or happiness is just over the next hill. That if we could only get through this task, this week, this feeling, then we could finally arrive. We are always going, always reaching, always waiting for a better version of now. But what if there is no better version of now? Not in the sense that this moment is perfect, or pleasant, or all we ever dreamed of, but in the deeper truth that this moment is all that actually exists. That every imagined future, every memory or regret, every plan or fear is happening inside a mind that is always trying to leave the present, and in doing so, we lose the very thing we long for. Because peace, the kind of peace that lives beneath circumstances, can only be found by stopping, by not rushing toward the next thing, by not measuring this moment against a fantasy of what it could be, but simply by being here. This is why, in so many Buddhist teachings, the instruction is not to transcend life, but to arrive in it, to become intimate with the breath, the body, the silence, to let go of the compulsive habit of becoming, always becoming someone else, somewhere else, something else, and instead, return to what is already here. This is not about abandoning your goals or dreams. It is about seeing that the quality of your life is not determined by where you're headed, but by how deeply you are present on the way there. Imagine now that your life is not a ladder to be climbed, but a landscape to be walked slowly. Imagine that nothing ahead of you holds more worth than what is under your feet right now. That even this moment, as unremarkable or uncomfortable or quiet as it may seem, contains the fullness of being. It doesn't need to be fixed, elevated or improved. It only needs to be seen, felt, lived. You may have noticed how often the mind resists stillness, how quickly it wants to fill silence, escape discomfort, move on. This is because we have been conditioned to believe that stillness is unproductive, that we are only valuable when we are striving. But this belief is a kind of poverty, one that leaves us endlessly poor in the midst of abundance, because the richest life is not the one filled with motion. It is the one filled with presence, and presence requires that we stop trying to get somewhere else. Try this now. Let go, just for this breath, of the idea that you need to be somewhere other than here. Let go of the need to fix, improve, or reach. Feel your body, the weight of it resting, the breath moving gently, the heart beating its quiet rhythm. This is life, not the version you imagined, not the idealized future, but the real, pulsing, intimate moment that is always waiting for you beneath the noise. If a thought arises, "This can't be it," or "I should be doing more," or "I need to solve this before I rest," notice it gently. No need to push it away. Just recognize that it is another form of the mind trying to move, another current trying to pull you from stillness. And each time you notice, you are free, not because the mind has changed, but because you are no longer following it. There's a Zen story about a student who asks the master, "What must I do to be free?" The master replies, "You must stop seeking freedom." The student, confused, asks, "But how will I find it if I do not seek it?" And the master smiles, "By realizing it is already here, behind your seeking." The wisdom in this story is not a riddle, it is a reminder that so much of what we search for, peace, wholeness, rest, is not hidden, it is simply overlooked. In our rush to find it elsewhere, we are not broken for wanting things to be different. Change is part of life, and growth is natural, but suffering arises when we postpone our peace until something happens, until the relationship heals, until the job changes, until the body feels better, until the past makes sense. What if instead we softened into the moment before things are resolved? What if peace is not the result of arrival, but the practice of full attention? As you lie here tonight, let this be your invitation to stop trying to get somewhere else, to stop measuring this breath against the next, to stop waiting for a better version of yourself to appear before you rest. This is enough. You are enough. Not because everything is finished or perfect or understood, but because life is here and you are awake to it. Ask yourself now, gently, like a leaf settling into still water, what am I still waiting for before I can feel at peace? And then, even more gently, can I rest now, even if nothing else changes? Let the question dissolve in the breath. Let the answers, if they come, rise in their own time. There is no rush, no fixing, no arriving. There is only presence, and presence is the beginning of everything you've been searching for. You are not behind. You are not lost. You are not late. You are here. Let that truth be enough.
There is a tender truth we come to learn, often not by study but by suffering, that healing is not something we can chase down, conquer, or command on our schedule. It is not a task to be completed or a mountain to summit with sheer will. Healing, true healing, is more like a garden. It does not respond to pressure, only to patience. It cannot be forced into bloom. It must be allowed to unfold in its own rhythm by its own inner logic, beneath the surface, often without our control. And this, for a mind conditioned to solve, to fix, to act, can feel almost unbearable. We live in a culture of urgency. Everything from productivity to pain management is driven by speed. If something hurts, we want it gone. If something is broken, we want it repaired. And in that rush to escape discomfort, we miss the quiet wisdom that healing offers when it is not interrupted. Pain, after all, is not always a signal that something is wrong. Sometimes it's a sign that something deep is working its way back to wholeness, in silence, in mystery, beyond our need to understand it. When we try to cure ourselves, to make grief vanish, to erase the sadness, to push through anxiety, we often do so with the best of intentions. But even those efforts can become a subtle form of resistance. They are still built on the premise that this moment, this feeling, this version of us is unacceptable. And as long as that belief remains, peace will stay just out of reach. Because peace is not a product of control. It is the soft space that opens when control is released. The Buddhist path does not promise immediate relief. It does not offer quick answers or emotional shortcuts. It offers something more enduring, the cultivation of awareness, of compassion, of patient presence. The practice is not to end suffering with speed, but to meet it with depth, to sit with the pain without trying to outsmart it, to witness the wound without demanding it heal on cue, to breathe with the brokenness, allowing it to soften in its own time, like frost melting beneath the sun. Try this now. Bring to mind a place in your life where you feel bruised or unsettled. It might be a recent loss, an old ache, an uncertainty that hasn't eased. Notice your instinct. Is there a desire to make it stop,
to tidy it up, to resolve it so you can move on. If so, that's okay. You are human. But what if, instead of trying to cure the discomfort, you simply allowed yourself to care for it? Not as a problem, but as a guest. Not as a failure, but as a passage. Imagine offering it breath, space, gentleness. The lotus, one of the most powerful symbols in Buddhist tradition, does not bloom in clear water. It grows from the mud, slow, unseen, hidden from view. Its beauty comes not in spite of the mud, but because of it. Likewise, your healing may not look like you expected. It may not be linear, fast, or clean. It may involve tears that arrive without warning, moments of numbness, days when you feel like you're moving backward. But all of it, every raw, imperfect step, is part of the unfolding. You do not need to rush it. You only need to remain present with it. Let this be your practice to stop asking the wound to disappear and start asking, what is this trying to show me? To stop measuring your worth by how quickly you bounce back and begin honoring the strength it takes to sit in the in-between. To stop demanding closure and start trusting that clarity comes not from force, but from quiet waiting. Healing is not the absence of pain. It is the movement of love through pain, slow, steady, sacred. As you lie here, resting, you may notice areas in your body that feel tense, places in the heart that feel unresolved. You do not need to change them, just be with them. Breathe into them with compassion. Imagine your awareness as a warm light, moving through the body, not to fix, but to witness. Not to control, but to comfort. You are not required to be whole before you can rest. You are not required to be healed before you can feel peace. Ask yourself now, gently, like a whisper through the soul, where am I still trying to force a cure, instead of allowing a healing? And then ask again, with deeper softness, can I let this unfold, even if I do not know how long it will take? Let these questions settle into the quiet spaces between your thoughts. No answers are needed. Only your presence is required. Presence without agenda. Compassion without timeline. You do not have to get over anything tonight. You only have to stay beside yourself as you are. Gently, honestly, lovingly. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are becoming, slowly, silently, like the lotus in the mud. Let yourself rest in that truth. Let yourself be held by it. There is a truth so quiet, so patient, that many of us spend our whole lives walking past it. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, but it waits, always, faithfully, beneath the noise of our struggle. The truth is this: pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain arises as it must, from the nature of impermanence. Bodies ache, relationships change, loss comes, aging happens. But suffering, the sharp, gnawing kind, that keeps us restless, that knots itself into the mind, comes not from pain alone, but from our resistance to it. In the refusal to let things be as they are, we create an extra layer of torment. And yet, when we stop resisting even a little, the suffering begins to dissolve. This does not mean we should suppress or deny our feelings. Quite the opposite. It means we meet them without judgment, without struggle, without trying to shove them into a shape that feels more comfortable. We often believe that if we resist hard enough, we can control what's happening, push back against grief, fight off anxiety, muscle our way through fear. But resistance doesn't free us. It tightens the grip. It reinforces the idea that something is wrong with this moment, wrong with us, wrong with life. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving, the craving for things to be different, to be better, to be under our control. And craving is just another form of resistance. We crave not to feel pain. We crave to escape the now. But what if we paused in that moment, not to fix anything, but simply to notice how much energy we spend trying not to feel what's here? That noticing, in itself, is a door. Because awareness makes room. It makes space for a different way of being, a softer way, one that leans toward discomfort rather than turning away. Imagine for a moment that you're standing in a river. The current is strong. Your instinct might be to push against it, to resist the pull, to fight for control. But the more you push, the more exhausted you become. Eventually, you realize the current isn't trying to drown you. It's just moving. And the moment you stop resisting, when you allow yourself to float, to be carried, the struggle ceases. The pain might still be there. The current doesn't vanish, but the suffering, the tightness, the fear that begins to ease. You are not weak for feeling pain. You are not broken because life hurts sometimes. But you are invited, always, to soften your grip around that pain. Not to get rid of it, not to transform it immediately, but to simply stop fighting with it. Let it breathe. Let it exist without the story that it shouldn't. Try this now. Bring your awareness to an area of your life where you feel tension, maybe in the body, maybe in the heart. Notice if there is any resistance there. A thought that says, this shouldn't be happening, or I can't feel this, or I need this to go away. Just observe it. Don't push it away or try to change it. Let yourself sit beside it, like you would sit beside a crying child, not demanding silence, not forcing a solution, just offering presence, kindness, stillness. This practice, the practice of non-resistance, is not about becoming passive. It's about becoming receptive. It's not about giving up on healing. It's about realizing that healing cannot happen in the presence of inner war. When the storm rages outside, it makes sense to seek shelter. But when the storm is inside, the shelter is surrender, not to the chaos, but to the reality of what is. When you stop resisting, you come back into alignment with the truth of impermanence, that nothing lasts, not even this moment, not even this pain. And in that alignment, something sacred opens. Space, breathing room, peace, not because the situation has changed, but because you have. You've stopped adding the weight of should to what already is. You've stopped arguing with the moment. And without that argument, even the pain becomes more bearable. Even sorrow softens. Even fear loses its sharpness. As you lie here now, resting, notice if there's any part of you that is still resisting. The urge to be better, the discomfort in your body, the mind that won't quiet down. Don't try to force peace. Don't try to chase sleep. Just be with what's here, as it is, as you are. And whisper gently to yourself, I allow this. Whatever this is, allow it. Let it be enough for now. Ask yourself, with openness, where am I still fighting? What cannot be changed? And ask again, even more softly, what happens if I stop? Let the breath answer. Let the body answer. You don't need to know what comes next. You only need to release, just for this moment, the burden of resistance. You are not here to master every emotion or silence every thought. You are here to rest inside the truth that you do not need to resist your experience in order to survive it. You only need to meet it, kindly, courageously, and let it move through. You are not the resistance. You are the space beyond it. And in that space, suffering begins to fade. Even when the sky is grey and thick with storm, even when the rain falls for days and the light seems to have disappeared, the truth remains. Above it all, the sky is still blue. It has not vanished. It has not broken. It has simply been covered momentarily by clouds. And when those clouds pass, as they always do, The blue returns, not because it was lost, but because it was always there, waiting patiently behind the veil. In the same way, your peace has never left you. Your clarity, your calm, your deep inner stillness. It may feel far away right now, hidden beneath layers of worry, sadness, regret, or confusion. But it is not gone. It is not something you must create or chase. It is something you return to, again and again, by remembering that the clouds are not the sky, the thoughts are not the self, the feelings are not the truth of who you are. They are weather, real, valid, sometimes overwhelming, but always temporary. This simple but powerful metaphor is found across many contemplative traditions, including Buddhism. The teaching is clear. Awareness itself is vast, open, luminous, like the sky. The disturbances we experience are clouds moving through it, but the sky does not cling to the clouds. It does not resist them. It simply holds them, letting them come and go. You are the sky, not the weather, but how easily we forget. When the mind fills with anxious thoughts, when the heart is heavy with emotion, it can feel as if that is all there is, as if the fog will never lift. We begin to identify with the clouds. I am this sadness, we say. I am this fear. I am this confusion. But this identification is the very source of our suffering. When we mistake the temporary for the permanent, the passing for the truth, we lose our anchor. And yet something deeper in you knows, even now. There is a quiet presence beneath the noise, a soft awareness that sees what's happening without being consumed by it. That presence is your blue sky. You may have been covered for a while, you may have forgotten its shade, but it remains, still, open, spacious, undamaged by the storm. Try this now. Bring your attention to your breath, not to control it, but to notice it. Feel how it moves in and out, like waves across the shore. This breath is not worried. It simply flows. Let each inhale be a gentle reminder that you are here, and that being here is enough. Let each exhale release just a little of the tension that tells you otherwise. There is nothing to fix in this moment, nothing to chase, nothing to prove. The sky does not earn its blueness. It simply is. Let your mind drift back, if it wishes, to a moment when you felt clear, calm, even briefly, perhaps walking through trees, or watching sunlight on water, or resting without effort. That moment is not far. It was not an escape, but a glimpse of what is always present beneath the clouds. You may not feel that clarity now. That's okay. The clouds are thick tonight. But trust, the sky is still blue behind them. Buddhist meditation practice often centers on this truth. You sit, and thoughts come. Feelings rise, some pleasant, some painful, and still, you sit. You observe. You do not push them away or chase after them. You begin to see that everything changes, that nothing, no matter how intense, stays forever. This is not just a practice, it is a life lesson. It reminds us that we are not at the mercy of our moods. We are not trapped by our thoughts. We are the space in which they occur. You may find tonight that your mind drifts back into the past, forward into the unknown, spinning stories that stir emotion. That's okay. Don't fight it, but also don't follow every cloud. Gently return, over and over return, to the breath, to the body, to the stillness that exists underneath it all. This returning is the heart of mindfulness, not to escape the weather, but to remember the sky. Ask yourself now, not as a demand, but as a gentle invitation. What clouds have I mistaken for truth? And then ask again, with even more softness. Can I remember the sky behind it all? Let those questions settle into your breath, into your being. No pressure to answer. Let them float, like leaves on water. Your work in this moment is not to become the sky. You already are. Your work is simply to stop believing you are the clouds. As you rest, allow whatever is present to be there. If sadness lingers, let it. If thoughts rise, let them. There is no wrong way to be here. There is only the practice of being here at all, with patience, with compassion, with the quiet confidence that this storm too will pass. You are not broken because the clouds have gathered. You are not lost because you've forgotten the blue. The sky never judges the weather. It simply continues to hold it all. So let yourself be held now by this breath, this space, this moment. Let everything pass through. You remain.
There are seasons when the heart feels closed, not by choice but by fatigue, by the slow accumulation of wounds, of words unspoken, of love that was not returned in the way it was given. In these times, the heart does not stop beating, but it grows quiet. It pulls its softness inward, like a flower folding its petals against the cold. And you may wonder, lying there in the stillness, will I ever feel light again? Will I ever trust, love, open? But even if it feels impossible now, there is a truth deeper than the silence. The heart always knows how to open again. It is not broken. It is simply resting, waiting, healing in ways you cannot yet see. The heart is not made of glass. It does not shatter and disappear. It is more like the earth, cracked perhaps, worn, weathered by storms, but still fertile beneath it all, still capable of blooming, still carrying seeds of tenderness, even when it feels barren. What closes can open, what hurts can soften, what retreats can return. And this process, this quiet, sacred returning, does not happen by force. It happens by presence, by patience, by allowing space for the heart to feel safe enough to unfold. We live in a world that praises quick recoveries, that tells us to move on, to stay strong, to not feel too much for too long. But the heart is not built for speed. It opens at the pace of trust. It listens, even when we do not. It waits, even when we forget. It's still trying. And even after deep betrayal, even after loneliness or loss, the heart keeps offering its quiet pulse, a rhythm that whispers, I'm still here. I still know how to love. You may not feel that pulse clearly tonight. You may feel numb, or weary, or distant from anything soft. That's okay. There is nothing wrong with you. Just because you do not feel open does not mean you are closed forever. Just because you are protecting your tenderness does not mean it is gone. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do is allow the heart to rest. Not force it to expand, not demand that it shine, but simply sit with it, as we would with an old friend who needs no fixing, only company. Buddhist teachings remind us that the heart, or citta, is naturally luminous, radiant and awake beneath the veils of suffering. When grief clouds our vision, when fear hardens our chest, that light does not vanish. It merely gets covered, and our practice then is not to manufacture love or joy or courage, but to peel back the coverings gently, to remove the armoring layer by layer, not with urgency, but with love. Try this now. Place a hand on your heart, not to push anything away or to pull anything in, but simply to connect. Feel the warmth of your palm against your chest, the rise and fall of breath. Let that touch remind you something inside is still alive, still moving, still capable of care. Let yourself feel that, even if faintly. No need to stir emotion. Just notice what's already here, beneath the tiredness, beneath the memories, beneath the clouds. Perhaps there is someone you once loved. Maybe you still do,
and the weight of that love has grown heavy. Or perhaps there is a part of yourself you've struggled to forgive, a story you wish had gone differently. These too live in the heart, and the opening does not mean forgetting them. It does not mean pretending they did not hurt. It means allowing them to live without hardening you. It means letting the heart expand to hold it all, the pain and the peace, the sorrow and the beauty, in one vast compassionate field. There is a Tibetan practice called Tonglen, which means sending and receiving. It teaches that instead of turning away from suffering, our own or others, we breathe it in with courage and we breathe out relief. We breathe in pain, not to keep it, but to transform it. And we breathe out love, not just for ourselves, but for all beings who carry the same ache. This practice, too, is how the heart reopens, by remembering it is not alone in its tenderness. Let this be your practice tonight, not to make yourself feel something, but to allow space for what is already unfolding. Perhaps the heart opens only a little, like the first crack of light before dawn. That is enough. Perhaps all you feel is your own hand resting on your chest. That too is enough. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in the sacred process of remembering what it feels like to feel again. Ask yourself now, softly, like a prayer whispered inside the quiet of your being, what if I didn't need to rush my healing? And then ask again, even more tenderly, can I trust that my heart will open, again and again, in its own time? Let these questions settle into the rhythm of your breath. Let them move like gentle waves across your body. You are not here to force your way back into joy. You are here to rest in the space that joy will one day return to. And in that resting, something already begins to stir, the faint, steady warmth of a heart that never gave up on you. Let it open, just a little. Let it breathe, and let yourself be held by that breath, by that space, by the quiet, knowing that no matter how long it takes, your heart remembers the way home.
There is a quiet thread that runs through your life, often invisible to the eye, often ignored by the mind, but always there, weaving together every moment, every turn, every wound and wonder. It does not follow the logic of success and failure, of right paths and wrong turns. It follows something older, something more compassionate, and if you could step back far enough, see it all from the stillness beyond time, you might begin to understand nothing has been wasted. Not the detours, not the heartbreak, not the years that felt lost. Even your deepest pain was not for nothing. This truth is difficult to hold when you are in the midst of disappointment or grief. When something slips through your fingers, when you look back at the time spent, or what feels like time lost, and wonder, what was it all for? But the path of wisdom is not about regret. It is about revelation, and slowly, gently, if you are willing to stay present with your experience, you begin to see how even the most unlikely parts of your story shape the landscape of your becoming. In Buddhist tradition, there is the idea of karma, not just as retribution or reward, but as the unfolding of cause and effect across time, intention, and consciousness. Every action, every thought, every moment of presence or avoidance plants a seed. Some seeds grow quickly, others take years, but nothing is lost. Even the tears you cried in the dark, even the kindness you gave without being seen, all of it is carried forward. All of it matters. You may not see the fruit of it now. You may feel like you are standing in a field that hasn't bloomed, wondering if anything you've done has made a difference. But nature does not rush. The lotus takes time. The oak begins as something nearly invisible. Trust that something inside you has been growing quietly through every season, through the silence, through the setbacks,
through the slow unfolding of lessons you didn't know you were learning. Try this now. Let your breath guide you into stillness. Let it settle the mind's tendency to evaluate, to tally, to measure where you are against where you thought you'd be. Let all the versions of what could have been dissolve for a moment. Bring to mind an experience you once believed was a mistake, something that felt like a failure, or a chapter that didn't end the way you hoped. Hold it gently in your awareness. No judgment, no shame, just a willingness to look at it again, through the eyes of compassion. What did it teach you? What strength was born in the struggle? What tenderness arose from the loss? What depth did it open in your heart that could not have been opened any other way? You may find that it's still hard to answer. That's okay. Sometimes the meaning is not visible until long after the moment has passed. Sometimes the clarity comes slowly, like morning light breaking through fog. But know this, you are not the same person you were before that experience. And that change, that softening, that deepening, it matters. It is not wasted. There is a Zen saying, "Barns burnt down, now I can see the moon." It points to the strange grace that often follows loss. We grieve what was destroyed, and yet from that clearing, something unexpected becomes visible. A new perspective, a different truth, a light we hadn't noticed before. This is not about romanticizing pain. It's about honoring the fullness of what it brings. Not just the breaking, but the revealing. Even your longing is not wasted. Even the desires that went unmet pointed you toward something sacred. They taught you about what matters to you, what lights you up, what breaks you open. They showed you what you were willing to hope for, and hope itself is never in vain. Even when the form it takes does not last. It is the signal of a heart still alive. Let this be your practice tonight. To release the idea that your life must follow a certain arc, to have value. To soften the grip around the story that says, it should have gone differently. To make peace with the past, not by rewriting it, but by recognizing that its worth was never measured in outcomes, but in presence. You were there, you felt, you tried, you grew, and that is enough. Ask yourself now gently, what am I still calling a mistake, when it may have been a turning point? And ask again, more softly, can I begin to trust that even the lost years were not truly lost? Let the answers rise slowly, or not at all. Let the questions themselves be a kind of balm, a loosening of the tight places inside you that still believe you should have known better, done better, been better. You were always doing the best you could with the light you had at the time, and now, with more light, you can see further. That too is part of the gift. Nothing is ever wasted. The pain has deepened your empathy. The silence has sharpened your listening. The waiting has taught you how to dwell in the unknown. Even your confusion was a kind of preparation, softening the ground for a clarity that had not yet come. You do not need to tie a bow around every experience to make it meaningful. Sometimes, simply continuing on, still breathing, still loving, still hoping, is the most meaningful thing of all. Let yourself rest now in that knowing. No moment is meaningless. No effort is lost. You are not behind.
There is a quiet anxiety that haunts so many hearts, especially in the stillness of night. A feeling that somehow, somewhere along the way, we've missed something, that we were supposed to be further along by now, that there was a moment we should have seized, a door we failed to walk through, a version of ourselves that should already be here. And in that silent rush to catch up, we hold our breath, measure our worth in invisible milestones, and wonder if we're falling behind, not just in life, but in meaning. But what if you're not late,
What if everything is unfolding exactly on time? In the teachings of the Buddha, there is no concept of being off schedule. There is only the present moment and the fullness of your awareness within it. Time, as we tend to measure it with clocks and calendars and achievements, is a human invention. Nature doesn't rush. The tree does not apologize for how slowly it grows. The moon does not compare its glow to the sun. The seasons arrive in their own rhythm, and so do we. And yet so much of our suffering comes from comparing where we are to where we think we should be. We look around and see others who seem to be thriving, arriving, accomplishing, healing faster. But what we are seeing is only the surface, the highlight, the peak. We do not see their inner weather, their hidden waiting, their own sense of lateness. The truth is, no one arrives all at once. We are all unfolding, quietly, in our own time. The path of awakening is not a race. There is no finish line, no deadline to reach peace. You have not missed your moment. If anything, this moment, the one you are in right now, is the moment you were meant to meet. Not because it's perfect, but because it is real. It's alive. It's yours. And the work is not to leap into the future, but to come fully into now. Try this. Feel the breath moving through you. Let it remind you that your body has never been in the past or future, only the present. Feel the bed beneath you, the air on your skin, the rhythm of your chest rising and falling. This is not a moment to get through. It is not a pause between more important things. This is life. Here, now. You are not early. You are not late. You are here. Let go of the invisible timeline. The one that says you should have found your purpose by now, that you should already be healed, successful, wise, content, that your path should have been clearer, that your losses shouldn't have happened. These are illusions, maps drawn by the mind, not by truth. Life does not follow straight lines. It spirals, it meanders, it doubles back. And sometimes, what looks like delay is simply the sacred pause before something deeper emerges. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition about a student who practiced diligently for many years without experiencing what others described as awakening. One day, frustrated, he asked his teacher, "Why am I not progressing faster?" The teacher replied, "Because you are not late, you are ripening. Like fruit that softens under the sun, like the rose that blooms only after enough darkness, we ripen at different times, and no fruit ever hurries its sweetness. If your heart is still heavy, if your mind is still restless, if your grief still lingers, it does not mean you are failing. It means you are human. It means life is still unfolding within you. Some lessons arrive like lightning, others take years. Some joys appear suddenly, others bloom slowly, season by season, in places you weren't even looking. But nothing is truly out of place, not even your longing. Let this be your practice tonight, to release the idea that you are behind, to let go of the silent shame that says you've wasted time or made too many wrong turns. Every step brought you here, to this breath, this moment of presence, this quiet turning inward. And if your heart is beating now, if your lungs are still breathing, it means life is not done with you. It means the sacred is still moving through you. It means there is still beauty waiting to be touched, still peace waiting to be received. Ask yourself now, gently, what would it feel like to no longer measure myself by time? And ask again, with even more softness, can I trust that I am exactly where I need to be? Let the questions settle, not to be answered, but to be held. Let them loosen the old belief that your value is tied to how quickly you arrive. You are not a project. You are a mystery, a living being with roots and wings and rhythms all your own. Tonight, you do not need to catch up to anything. You do not need to rush into clarity. You are allowed to be in between. You are allowed to unfold slowly. You are allowed to not know yet, and you are loved, not for how quickly you bloom, but for the tenderness with which you keep showing up. Let yourself rest in the truth that time does not measure the soul. Let yourself trust that your life, even now, is right on time.
We live in a world that is loud, not only in sound, but in expectation. Everything seems to call for more noise, more urgency, more performance. Even within ourselves, we are conditioned to trust the voices that speak the loudest. The voice of fear that shouts "what if?" The voice of doubt that questions our every move. The voice of pressure that insists we must do more, be more, achieve more. These voices dominate the inner landscape like thunder, convincing us that wisdom must come with volume and certainty. But the deepest truths do not scream. They whisper, and to hear them we must learn to trust what's quiet. There is a silence beneath the surface of things, a stillness that does not argue or insist. It is not pushy or proud. It does not compete for attention. But when everything else falls away, when the noise loses its grip, and we are alone with ourselves, that stillness remains. It is the quiet awareness watching the thoughts. It is the breath beneath the breath. It is the pulse of something ancient and true, not invented by the mind, but remembered by the soul. This is the space from which insight arises, not in the chaos of overthinking, but in the pause, the space between moments. The soft knowing that comes not from analysis, but from presence. In Buddhism, it is said that the mind, when quieted, reflects reality like a clear, still pond, but when agitated, it distorts everything. The practice, then, is not to fight the noise, but to let it settle, to return to the simplicity of being, to trust that what comes through the silence is not emptiness, but clarity. Try this now. Allow the breath to slow, not by force, but by attention. Let it move like a gentle tide. Notice how the body softens as you stop, bracing against time. Let yourself sink a little deeper into this moment, into this quiet. No questions to solve, no problems to fix, just the bare, beautiful fact that you are here, alive, breathing, aware. As you rest in this stillness, you may notice thoughts continuing to pass through. That is natural. The mind is not your enemy. It is simply conditioned to move, but beneath that movement, there is a part of you that remains unmoved. The observer, the witness, the space in which all things come and go. Trust that space. That is where peace lives. Not in the content of thought, but in the presence that watches it all without attachment. So often, we wait for a voice to confirm our path, something outside ourselves to validate our choices, our pace, but the voice that matters most is not out there. It's the one you hear when you are most still, the one that doesn't argue, but reassures, that doesn't panic, but understands. And though it may speak softly, it is steady. It is the voice of truth, of inner guidance, of your own deep knowing, and it grows louder only when you begin to believe it. There is a Zen saying, "Silence is the language of God. Everything else is poor translation." Whether you believe in divinity or not, there is something sacred about silence, not as absence but as presence. In silence we hear what is usually drowned out. The body's wisdom, the heart's longing, the soul's direction. In silence we are reminded that we do not need to rush or prove or perform. We only need to listen. Let this be your practice tonight, not to seek answers, but to return to the space where they might arise. Not to demand a voice, but to rest in the stillness that precedes it. Perhaps no great revelation will come. That's okay. Sometimes the gift of silence is not in what it gives us, but in what it frees us from,
the noise, the chase, the fatigue of trying to figure it all out. Ask yourself now, without expectation, what quiet voice have I been ignoring? And ask again, with kindness, can I begin to trust the stillness more than the noise? Let the questions linger, let the breath respond, let your being settle into the knowing that you are not lost, only learning to listen again. In the quiet, you are closer to yourself than ever, and that self, the one that is aware even now, is enough. There is no urgency, no race to hear something profound. The deepest truths are not hidden. The deepest truths are not hidden. They are simply subtle. They wait for us to become quiet enough to receive them. And tonight, you are doing just that, returning to the ground beneath thought, to the silence that has always been with you, even when you forgot to notice it. In time, you will find that trusting what's quiet does not make you weak. It makes you wise. It does not make you passive. It makes you clear. And from that clarity, all right action flows, not rushed, not forced, but aligned. So rest now. Let the quiet be enough. Let it hold you, not as an answer, but as a homecoming. Let it remind you that you are never truly alone in the silence, because the truest part of you lives there.
There is a quiet revolution that begins the moment we stop searching for ourselves in places we cannot be found. The moment we stop outsourcing our peace, our power, our worth, and begin to remember what has always been here, waiting not to be added, but to be recognized. So much of our suffering is born not from lack, but from the belief that we are lacking, that something essential is missing, and that if we just work hard enough, search long enough, change ourselves completely, we might finally be whole. But this idea is a misunderstanding, a forgetting. You were never incomplete. You were never missing anything. Everything you need for this journey, the strength, the courage, the wisdom, the clarity, is already within you. The Buddhist teachings speak again and again to this truth. They do not ask you to become someone else. They ask you to return. Return to your own mind, your own breath, your own heart, to the refuge that is not a place or a person, but a presence, the awakened awareness that lives quietly beneath the noise of thought. This refuge is not far. It is not locked behind years of effort or perfection. It is as close as your next breath, as near as your own heartbeat, as intimate as the space behind your eyes when you close them. And yet, because we've been taught to look outward, to measure ourselves by the approval of others, to fix ourselves according to external models of success, it can feel strange, even uncomfortable, to sit still and turn inward. The mind resists. It tells us we are not enough yet, that we need more time, more healing, more answers before we can feel peace. But peace does not come later. It comes now, when we stop abandoning ourselves, when we stop believing the mind's critique and start trusting the presence that quietly watches it all. Try this now. Let yourself arrive fully in this moment, not by effort, but by noticing what is already here. The breath, moving on its own. The body, resting without instruction. The mind still enough to listen. You are not creating awareness. You are not inventing stillness. You are simply remembering them. Like finding a familiar room in a house you've lived in all your life, but forgotten how to access. You do not need to break the door down. You only need to return. Bring to mind now a time when you doubted yourself, when you felt unsure, overwhelmed, disconnected. Maybe that moment is even now. Notice the thoughts that arise, the narratives the mind tells. I can't handle this. I'm not ready. I'm not enough. These thoughts feel real. They carry weight. But pause. Breathe. Beneath those thoughts, is there something else?
a part of you that is not afraid, a presence that is not speaking in words, but in calm. Even if it is faint, it is there. That presence is who you are, not the fear, not the doubt, but the awareness holding it all. And if there is no clear answer, that's okay. The mind may still be loud, the emotions may still swirl, but that doesn't mean you're lost. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human, returning, again and again, to the truth beneath the noise. The fact that you are here, listening, breathing, is enough. It means you haven't given up. It means the light in you is still burning, quietly perhaps, but steadily. There is a Zen parable of a man searching for a precious jewel. He spends years wandering, climbing mountains, crossing rivers, asking strangers for directions, always convinced the jewel is hidden somewhere far away. Finally, in exhaustion, he collapses. In that stillness, his hand brushes against his own robe, and there, sewn into the lining, he finds the jewel. It had been with him all along. In his desperation to find it, he had missed the truth. He was already carrying what he sought. We all are, searching for peace, for meaning, for something to make us feel whole, not realizing that the jewel is in our very being. The stillness, the wisdom, the light, the compassion, it is already stitched into the fabric of who we are. Our work is not to acquire it, but to stop long enough to feel it, to see it not as something we must earn, but as something we must accept. Let this be your practice tonight, to stop the chase, to let yourself rest, not because everything is solved, but because you have nothing to prove. Let the breath carry you inward. Let the silence be a mirror, showing you the beauty you keep forgetting is yours. You are not behind. You are not empty. You are full, full of presence, of potential, of love you have not yet remembered how to feel for yourself. Ask yourself now, with no pressure, what if nothing is missing? And ask again, with deep tenderness, can I believe, even a little, that I already have what I need? Let these questions echo in the quiet, not looking for answers, but letting their truth settle gently in your chest. You were never meant to be perfect. You were meant to be present, and presence is enough. Presence is the doorway through which all healing enters. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to come home to yourself. And in that home, nothing is lacking. Nothing is out of place. You belong to this moment, to this breath, to this life. As you are, let yourself rest in that truth. And now here you are, at the edge of thought, at the quiet shore, where doing fades and only being remains. You have listened, breathed, reflected. You have walked through the inner landscapes of your heart, your fears, your longings. And though you may not feel finished, though your mind may still whisper that there is more to fix, more to figure out, know this: you have done enough. You have arrived at the doorway of deep rest, not just sleep, but surrender. The kind of rest that does not depend on a quiet world, but on a softened heart. The kind of surrender that does not mean defeat, but trust. Trust that you are held. Trust that this moment, unpolished, uncertain, unfinished, is enough. In the teachings of the Buddha, the final release is called Nibbana, the extinguishing not of life, but of the flames of craving, resistance, and aversion. It is described not as a place to go, but a state of peace that arises when nothing more is clung to. Tonight, your practice is not to reach that state in full, but to taste a small, sacred echo of it, to let go, just for now, of the heavy effort to be more, know more, change more. To rest in what is, and what is here now is simple. Breath, body, stillness. You are not asked to transcend this moment, but to be with it gently, completely. The weight of your limbs, the warmth of your chest, the quiet rhythm that continues even when you are not watching. This is enough. There is nowhere else to be, no other version of yourself to become. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are simply tired, and you are allowed to be. Rest is not weakness. It is a holy act, a return to the rhythm of the earth, a surrender to the wisdom of cycles. Inhale and exhale, rising and falling, waking and sleeping. All of life moves in this way. Why should you be any different? Why should your soul be expected to sprint endlessly, to stay lit like a lamp that never dims? Even the stars go quiet. Even the ocean rests between tides. Try this now. Let your breath deepen, not because you must control it, but because the body is wise and knows how to lead you home. Let each exhale be an offering, a small release. Imagine that with each breath out, you are dropping something you no longer need. A thought, a tension, a worry that clings to the edges of your mind. You don't need to push it away, just exhale. Let it go. Let the body remember what it feels like to rest without holding anything. Feel the support beneath you, the earth, the mattress, the softness of the dark, all holding you without demand. You do not need to stay alert now. You do not need to guard your heart or your mind. Let the muscles behind your eyes relax. Let your jaw ungrip. Let the back of your tongue soften. This is the language of surrender, not with words, but with presence. There may still be parts of you that resist, that stay half awake, guarding against stillness, wondering what might happen if you fully let go. That's okay. Greet them with kindness. Let them know that it's safe now, that nothing is expected of them, that the day is done, and they no longer need to carry the weight. Rest is not a decision. It's a permission. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to stop trying, stop explaining, stop striving. Just be. Ask yourself now, not as a task, but as a gentle blessing. What would it feel like to let go completely? And ask again, even more quietly, can I trust that rest will hold me? Let the questions dissolve into your breath. Let the body answer in its own time, with its own wisdom. There is no need to chase sleep. It will come when it's ready. And even if it does not come right away, know this: rest is already here, in this moment of not doing, in this breath, in this letting go. There is a deeper truth waiting for you at the bottom of every exhale, the truth that you are not the thoughts you carry. You are not the plans you have made. You are not the regrets, or the hopes, or the stories. You are the stillness beneath them, the awareness holding them, the open sky beneath the storm. And as you surrender, you may feel it, not all at once, not dramatically, but like a soft tide rising, the peace that was never gone, only buried beneath the noise, the peace that doesn't ask for perfection, but welcomes you exactly as you are. This is not the end of the journey, but the sacred pause, the place where the soul catches its breath, where the spirit renews itself in silence. You have nothing more to do tonight. You have nothing more to be. You are already whole, already worthy, already home. Let go now. Let sleep take you. Let stillness enfold you. You have arrived, not somewhere else, but more deeply into yourself. And that is everything.